Have you ever noticed how some nights don't really end? I don't mean the kind where you stay up too late or wake up tired the next morning. I mean nights that follow you. Nights that don't stay in the past, no matter how far you drive or how much time passes. This is one of those nights. Because whatever happened at that farmhouse didn't stop when we ran out the front door. It didn't stay behind in the fields. And it definitely didn't care that the sun eventually came up. What still keeps me awake isn't what we saw. It's what we don't remember clearly. 5 of us went there to celebrate the new year. 5 of us walked into that farmhouse laughing, joking, carrying bags of food and cheap decorations, thinking the hardest part of the night would be staying awake until midnight. Only 4 of us made it out. And even now, years later, we still can't agree on when the night actually went wrong. Some say it started the moment we arrived. Some say it was when the clock hit 12. Others swear it began much earlier, before we even reached the farm. But here's the part none of us can explain. When we escaped that place, breathless and shaking, we drove for miles without looking back. The road was empty. The sky was starting to lighten. Everything looked normal again. Too normal. Because none of us noticed it at first. The radio didn't work anymore. Our phones had no signal, even when we reached the highway. And every time one of us tried to talk about what happened inside that house, the words came out wrong, like the memory itself didn't want to be spoken. Later that morning, when we finally reached town, we all noticed the same thing. Our watches showed different times, not minutes apart, hours. And one of us still had dirt under their fingernails. That doesn't make sense, because we never touched the ground outside. At least, I don't think we did. People like to say fear makes you imagine things. That panic fills in the gaps with lies. But fear doesn't explain why none of us can remember the exact moment when the party stopped feeling like a party. Fear doesn't explain why. Every New Year's Eve since then, one of us gets a phone call from an unknown number and hears nothing but breathing on the other end. And fear definitely doesn't explain why. When I close my eyes, I can still see the farmhouse exactly the way it looked that night, waiting. Because the truth is, we didn't just run from something in that house. Something let us go. And the worst part? I don't think it did that out of mercy. The plan was supposed to be simple. That's what makes it so easy to replay in my head, over and over again, like a mistake you don't realize is fatal until it's already too late. There were 5 of us, not strangers, not casual friends, the kind of group that had survived years together, bad jobs, breakups, late-night arguments that never really ended anything. We trusted each other without thinking about it. New Year's Eve was coming up, and nobody wanted the usual crowded bars or loud strangers pretending to care. We wanted space, privacy, a place where we could be loud without anyone telling us to shut up. That's when one of us mentioned the farmhouse. It belonged to his grandfather. Old, quiet, way out past the edge of town, surrounded by fields that stretched farther than your headlights could reach. No neighbors close enough to complain. No cameras. No noise. He described it like it was nothing special. Just an old place his family used to visit years ago. A little rundown, maybe. A little creepy, sure. But in the harmless way old buildings always are. We joked about it being haunted. That's important to remember. Because every joke that night turned out to be a warning. The farmhouse hadn't been used in a long time. The grandfather moved out years ago. Something about his health. Something about the winters being too hard out there alone. Nobody asked too many questions. Nobody wanted details. All we heard was that the house was still standing, still had power, still had heat if you knew which switches to flip. It sounded perfect. We planned the party in pieces, over group chats and half-serious voice notes. Who'd bring drinks? Who'd bring speakers? Who'd handle food? The excitement built naturally, like it always does when you're counting down to a night you think will matter. And it did matter, just not in the way we expected. There was one small detail that got brushed aside early on. The road to the farmhouse. Apparently, it wasn't marked well. No clear signs. No streetlights. Just a narrow stretch of cracked asphalt that turned into dirt the closer you got. You had to know where to turn, or you'd miss it completely. We laughed about getting lost. About being stuck in the middle of nowhere. About how that's how horror movies start. Nobody noticed how quiet it got after that joke. The truth is, none of us had been to that farmhouse before. Not recently. Not together. We trusted the one who said he remembered the way. We trusted that the house would be empty, that it was just a building, that nothing was waiting for us there. And maybe that was the first real mistake. Because when we finally loaded up the car and started driving out of the city, the further we went, the more it felt like we were leaving something behind. Streetlights disappeared. Cell service faded in and out. The air felt colder, even with the heat blasting. At one point, someone asked a simple question. Are you sure your grandpa knows we're coming? There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. Then he said, yeah, of course. And we didn't ask anything else. Looking back now, that silence tells me more than his answer ever did. Because the plan was never just to throw a party. The plan was to go somewhere forgotten. And we went willingly. We reached the farmhouse just as the sky was losing its last bit of color. Not dark yet. That in-between hour where everything looks flat and unreal, like the world is holding its breath. The road narrowed until the trees pressed in on both sides, their branches twisting together overhead. Our headlights cut through the fog in short, nervous beams, revealing broken fence posts and patches of frozen mud. No mailbox, no sign, just a long, uneven driveway that seemed to appear out of nowhere. When the farmhouse finally came into view, nobody spoke. It sat alone in the middle of the field, larger than I expected, darker than it should have been. The paint was peeling, the windows black and reflective, like eyes that refused to blink. The porch sagged slightly in the middle, as if it had learned to bend under weight long ago. The engine shut off. The silence rushed in immediately. No insects, no wind, not even the distant sound of animals. Just the ticking of the cooling engine and our own breathing, suddenly much louder than before. Someone laughed. Too loud, too fast. Okay, yeah, that's definitely haunted. Nobody laughed back. The cold hit us the moment we stepped out of the car. Not the normal winter chill. This felt heavier, sharper, like it went straight through layers of clothing and settled against the skin. The air smelled strange too. Not rot, not damp, something older, dry, like dust that hadn't been disturbed in years. The front door was unlocked. That should have bothered us more than it did. Inside, the farmhouse smelled the same way the air outside did. Stale, untouched, but not abandoned. The floorboards creaked under our weight, each step echoing deeper into the house than it should have. Our voices sounded wrong too, like the walls were swallowing parts of our words. The living room was large and mostly empty. A couch covered in a white sheet. A wooden table pushed against the wall. Old picture frames turned face down, as if someone had deliberately hidden what was inside them. The lights worked, but not evenly. Some flickered, some buzzed, some refused to turn on at all. We told ourselves it was wiring. Old houses always have problems. Still, one thing stood out immediately. The temperature inside was warmer than outside, but uneven. Near the windows, the air felt icy. Near the center of the room, it felt thick and stale, almost suffocating, like the house was breathing. At the far end of the hallway, there was a door that stood out from the rest. Darker wood, no handle, just a keyhole and deep scratch marks around the frame, carved into the wood over and over again. Someone asked what was in there. Our friend, the one whose grandfather owned the place, hesitated before answering. Basement, he said. It sticks sometimes. The scratches didn't look like the kind caused by a stuck door. We didn't go near it. Instead, we unpacked our bags, dropped our coats, and tried to shake off the feeling that we were intruding somewhere we weren't meant to be. Music played softly from a speaker, echoing strangely through the empty rooms, filling the silence just enough to make it bearable. But even as we moved around, laughing and setting things down, I couldn't stop noticing the details. The windows didn't reflect us properly. The hallway felt longer every time I looked down it. And no matter where I stood, I had the unsettling feeling that the house already knew we were there, and it was deciding what to do with us. We tried to turn the farmhouse into something it wasn't. That's the only way I can describe it. Bright streamers went up against faded walls. Cheap paper decorations covered stains we didn't want to think about. Someone connected the speakers, and music finally filled the space, loud enough to push back the silence. Or at least that's what we hoped. For a while, it worked. We laughed. We danced. We teased each other about how dramatic we were being. The tension loosened just enough to feel normal again. Food came out. Drinks were opened. Coats were tossed over chairs that groaned under the weight. The living room started to look lived in, like the house had accepted us. But the farmhouse never stopped reminding us that it was older than our comfort. The lights dimmed without warning, then flared back to life. Not a power outage, just a slow, deliberate flicker, like someone dragging their fingers over a switch. The music cut out for half a second and came back distorted. The voices stretched and warped before snapping back to normal. Someone blamed bad wiring. Another blamed bad speakers. Nobody mentioned the sound we all heard at the same time. A heavy thump. Not upstairs. Not downstairs. Somewhere inside the walls. We froze, drinks halfway to our mouths, listening. Nothing followed. No footsteps. No creaking. Just silence again. We laughed it off, louder this time. Someone joked that the house was settling. Another said old places always make noise when they warm up. It made sense. It always does, until it doesn't. As midnight crept closer, small things kept happening. The back door was open when we were sure we'd closed it. Cold air rolled in, carrying the smell of dirt and something metallic. The decorations near the hallway fell down on their own, one by one, even though there was no breeze. One of us swore they heard a whisper near the kitchen sink. Just one word. Their name. They didn't tell us right away. They waited until later, when everyone was talking over each other, when the music was loud enough that doubt could hide inside it. I remember watching the clock on the wall. It was old. Analog. The second hand moved in uneven jerks instead of smooth ticks. Every time it passed the 12, it hesitated, just for a moment longer than it should have. The closer we got to midnight, the worse that hesitation became. Outside, the wind picked up suddenly, slamming against the walls hard enough to rattle the windows. The fields beyond the glass were nothing but darkness now, stretching endlessly in every direction. At 11:59, we gathered in the living room, counting down with forced excitement. 10, 9, 8. The music grew louder. The lights flickered faster. 7, 6. My chest felt tight, like the air had thickened. 5, 4. The second hand stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. 3, 2. Every sound dropped out at once. No music, no wind, no breathing. And when we shouted 1, nothing happened. No cheers, no laughter, just the sudden, unbearable feeling that the farmhouse had noticed the time too. And it didn't like it. We stood there, frozen, waiting for the moment to catch up to itself. Someone laughed nervously and said, "Okay, that was weird," like naming it would fix it. The clock on the wall didn't move. The second hand stayed locked in place, trembling slightly, as if it wanted to move but couldn't. The minute hand was crooked, tilted just enough to look wrong. That's when I noticed something else. My phone said it was 12:07. Someone else checked theirs. 11:58. Another friend's phone showed no time at all, just a blank screen, even though it was still on. Before anyone could say anything, the lights went out, not all at once, room by room. The kitchen went dark first, then the hallway, then the corners of the living room collapsed into shadow, leaving us standing in a dim, flickering center like we were on a stage we didn't ask to be on. The music didn't stop, it slowed. The voices stretched into something unrecognizable, deep and warped, dragging each word like it was being pulled through thick mud. Someone rushed to unplug the speaker, but the sound kept playing for 2 more seconds after the cord was out. Those 2 seconds felt intentional. Then silence slammed down hard enough to hurt. That's when we heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming from above us. We all looked up at the same time. The farmhouse didn't have a second floor. I remember that clearly because someone had asked earlier, and we joked about it being a 1-level death trap. No stairs. No attic access. Just a flat ceiling with faint water stains and long cracks running like veins. The footsteps crossed the ceiling anyway. Back and forth. Deliberate. Unhurried. One of us whispered, "Stop messing around." No one answered. The footsteps stopped directly over the living room. Something pressed down. The ceiling bowed slightly, dust drifting down in thin lines, floating through the air like ash. The pressure lifted, then pressed again, harder this time, as if whatever was up there was testing how much weight the house could take. Someone started crying, quietly, uncontrollably. Then the pressure disappeared. At the same moment, the hallway door, the one with the scratch marks, clicked, not opened, unlocked. The sound was small, almost polite, but it felt louder than anything we'd heard all night. The air shifted immediately, cold rushing out of the hallway in a steady wave. The smell changed too. Not dust anymore. Not age. Earth. Rot. Something alive that had been trapped too long. We backed away instinctively, every part of us screaming not to look, not to acknowledge what was happening. But fear doesn't stop curiosity. It sharpens it. The door creaked open on its own, just wide enough to reveal darkness that didn't behave like normal shadow. It felt deeper, thicker, like light didn't know how to exist inside it. From somewhere inside that darkness, a voice spoke. Not loud, not angry, familiar. It used a voice we recognized. "Did you miss me?" That's when we finally understood something had gone terribly wrong. The party didn't end at midnight. It was replaced. No one moved. Not because we were brave, but because our bodies didn't seem to belong to us anymore. Fear has a way of locking you in place. Like if you stay still enough, reality might reset itself. The voice came again. This time, it said one of our names. Perfectly. The same tone, the same rhythm, even the slight hesitation they always had when saying it out loud. It wasn't an imitation. It was a memory speaking back to us. The friend whose name was called shook their head slowly. "No," they whispered. "That's not funny." The darkness inside the hallway shifted. Not forward, not backward, sideways. Like something tall was adjusting its posture in a space that wasn't built for it. Then we heard breathing. Not close, not far, everywhere. The lights flickered back on suddenly, harsh and bright, making us all flinch. The hallway door was closed again, locked. The scratch marks around the frame looked deeper now, fresher, like they'd been made recently. The clock on the wall started ticking again. Fast, too fast. Each second slammed forward like it was trying to catch up on lost time. Someone laughed hysterically, hands shaking so badly they spilled their drink all over the floor. The liquid soaked into the wood and disappeared almost instantly, like the floor was thirsty. "That didn't happen," they said. "We're just drunk." That's it. None of us argued, because arguing would have meant admitting what we all felt, that something had spoken to us from inside the house, and it knew us well enough to hurt us without touching us. We decided to step outside. Fresh air, cold reality, anything to put distance between us and those walls. The front door wouldn't open. The handle turned easily, but the door didn't move. No resistance, no stuck wood. It just refused, like the idea of opening no longer applied to it. Someone tried the back door. Same thing. The windows didn't budge either. Not locked, not sealed, just unresponsive. That's when one of us noticed the footprints. They appeared slowly on the dusty floor near the hallway, one by one, heavy impressions forming as if someone invisible was walking toward us. The footprints stopped in the middle of the living room, right between us. Then a sixth footprint appeared, facing the wrong direction. The friend closest to it screamed. At the exact same moment, the clock shattered. Glass exploded outward, raining down around us. The hands flew off the wall and clattered to the floor, spinning uselessly until they stopped. Silence returned again, but it felt different now, thicker, angrier. From somewhere deep inside the house, something laughed. Not loud, not cruel, understanding. And in that moment, we all felt the same terrible certainty settle into our chest. This wasn't random. Whatever lived in that farmhouse hadn't woken up tonight. It had been waiting, and now that it had us exactly where it wanted us, it was finally ready to begin. The laughter faded, but it didn't disappear. It sank into the walls. We could feel it there, vibrating faintly beneath the floorboards, inside the beams above our heads, like the house itself was holding onto the sound. No matter how still we stood, the farmhouse no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. Someone finally said what all of us were thinking. We need to know what this place is. Not who, what, because whatever was happening didn't feel human anymore. We started searching the house, staying close together, afraid that if we spread out, the house would rearrange itself and forget where we were. The rooms felt subtly different now. Corners seemed sharper, doorways narrower. The hallway stretched longer than before, the shadows at the far end thickening with every step. In the kitchen, we found something none of us remembered seeing earlier. A trapdoor. It was set into the floor, almost perfectly hidden beneath a rug that looked too clean for the rest of the house. The wood around it was scratched raw, not just on the surface, but deep, layered, like someone had clawed at it again and again over many years. One of us whispered, "That wasn't here before." No one argued. We lifted the rug. Carved into the trapdoor were symbols, not words exactly, more like shapes that made your eyes slide away if you stared at them too long. Circles cut through with uneven lines, marks that repeated in groups of 5. Our number. Someone else noticed something worse. Handprints, small ones, large ones, some overlapping, all pressed into the wood like they'd been burned there. We didn't want to open it. We knew we shouldn't, but the house had already shown us that ignoring things didn't make them go away. The trapdoor opened easily, too easily. Cold air poured out, carrying the same earth-heavy smell from the hallway, stronger now. Below us was a narrow staircase descending into darkness that swallowed the light from above. At the bottom, we could see the faint outline of shelves. jars, boxes, and something hanging from the ceiling, swaying slowly even though there was no breeze. One of us noticed a notebook sitting on the top step. Old, leather-bound. The edges were worn soft, like it had been handled obsessively. Inside, the handwriting was shaky but deliberate. Dates filled the pages. Names crossed out. Notes written in a careful, almost loving tone. "He's not gone," one line read. "He just needs to be remembered." Another page showed a rough sketch of the farmhouse. Not as it looked now, as it looked alive. Rooms were marked and circled, arrows pointed inward, all leading to the center of the house. The living room. Below the drawing, one sentence was written darker than the rest, pressed hard enough to tear the paper. "The house doesn't keep the dead. It teaches them how to stay." That's when we understood the grandfather hadn't left that farmhouse. He'd fed it, and whatever lived there didn't want new guests. It wanted replacements. The lights above us flickered violently, plunging the kitchen into darkness. From the bottom of the stairs, something shifted, slow, heavy, climbing. And for the first time that night, the house felt impatient. We didn't wait to see what was coming up the stairs. The trapdoor slammed shut on its own, hard enough to rattle the entire kitchen. The rug slid back into place like it had never been disturbed. For a moment, none of us spoke. We just stood there, hearts pounding, listening. There were footsteps beneath us now, not on the stairs, under the floor. Slow, dragging steps moving in circles, as if whatever was down there was learning the shape of the room by feel. Each step made the wood vibrate softly, sending a sickening hum through our bones. "We need to get out," someone whispered. That sentence felt ridiculous the moment it left their mouth. The house didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a body, a massive one, and we were standing somewhere near its chest, waiting for it to decide whether to breathe us in or crush us out. We moved back toward the living room, but the hallway wasn't the same. It was longer. I know how that sounds. I know what logic says. But the hallway stretched farther than it had minutes earlier, the end swallowed in shadow that pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. The walls felt closer together, the ceiling lower. Our footsteps echoed strangely, not repeating the way they should have. One of us reached out to touch the wall and immediately pulled their hand back. It was warm, not from heat, from something deeper, like warmth rising from under skin. That's when we realized the pictures on the walls had changed. Earlier, they'd been turned face down. Now they faced us. The photos were old, black and white, people standing in front of the farmhouse. Families, couples, groups of friends, always groups, and always one face scratched out in every photo. Different face each time. As we passed, the scratched out faces seemed to follow us. The empty white spaces where features should be reflecting just enough light to catch the eye. One of the frames slipped off the wall and shattered at our feet. Inside, the photo showed 5 people. Only 4 faces remained. We ran, or at least we tried to. The living room doorway slammed shut ahead of us, then opened again into a room that wasn't the living room. The furniture was wrong. The windows were gone. The air smelled heavier, like dirt after rain. "This isn't right," someone cried. "This isn't the house." The house answered by turning the lights off. In the darkness, we heard breathing again. Close this time. Right behind us, one of our friends screamed and stumbled forward, and when the lights snapped back on, we all saw it. He was smiling, too wide, too calm. His eyes were unfocused, like he was listening to something none of us could hear. "It says we don't have to be scared," he said softly. "It says this is where we belong." We backed away from him. He didn't follow. He just stood there, smiling, while the floor beneath his feet darkened, soaking in something that wasn't there a second ago. That's when we understood something terrifying. The house wasn't trapping all of us. It was choosing, and it had already made its first decision. We didn't touch him. None of us said his name, because the moment we did, it felt like the house leaned in closer, listening. The walls creaked softly, not from age, but from attention. He blinked slowly, like someone waking from a deep sleep. "You guys are acting weird," he said, still smiling. "It's just a house." But his voice didn't match his face. The words came out flat, hollow, like they were being read from memory instead of thought. When he took a step toward us, the floor didn't creak. That was wrong. Every step in this place creaked. Someone whispered, "That's not him," and the smile twitched. The house responded immediately. The room shifted again, the walls rippling subtly, like heat distortion. The air grew thick, pressing against our lungs. Suddenly, we weren't standing together anymore. We were separated. I found myself alone in the living room, staring at the couch covered in white sheets. The music speaker sat on the table, silent and unplugged. The clock was back on the wall, whole again, ticking calmly as if nothing had happened. For a moment, I wondered if I'd imagined everything. Then the sheet on the couch moved. Slowly, something beneath it shifted, forming the rough shape of a person sitting up. The sheet slid back just enough to reveal a face. My face, but older. The eyes were tired, hollow. The skin sagged slightly, like time had pressed harder on this version of me. When it spoke, it used my voice. Not how I sound now, but how I sound when I'm afraid. If you stay, it said, you don't have to remember the worst parts. The room changed again. Now I was standing in the kitchen, watching another friend scream at someone I couldn't see. Their words echoed back at them, twisted, accusing. The house replayed moments we'd buried, fights we never resolved, things we never said, guilt we pretended didn't matter. The house didn't invent fear. It extracted it. Every room showed us a different version of ourselves. Versions that stayed, versions that gave in, versions that looked relieved to stop fighting. Somewhere down the hall, I heard crying, then laughter, then silence. When we finally found each other again, something had changed. We wouldn't meet each other's eyes. We didn't trust what we saw anymore. The friend who'd been smiling stood at the end of the hallway, head tilted, listening to something only he could hear. His voice drifted toward us, calm and distant. It says the house isn't evil, he said. It's lonely. Behind him, the walls pulsed faintly, like veins filling with blood. The house didn't want to kill us. That would have been easy. It wanted us to choose it, and it knew exactly how to make us doubt everything else. We realized, too late, that the house didn't just trap us, it selected. The friend who had been smiling walked forward slowly, almost in a trance. His eyes glazed over, but not empty, intent, focused, like he had made a decision before the rest of us even understood the choice existed. The others froze, panic mixed with disbelief. No one moved. The house was quiet now, but the silence was heavier than anything before. It pressed on our ears, our lungs, our thoughts. Every heartbeat felt like it was echoing against the walls. Then we saw it, a shallow depression in the floorboards where the trapdoor had been. The scratches were deeper now, as if someone, or something, had climbed back up from the basement and dragged itself across the room. And inside that dark patch, the faint outline of a figure had been imprinted in the dust. Not standing, kneeling, waiting. Our friend stepped into it without hesitation. It wants me, he said softly. No fear in his voice, only understanding. We shouted. We tried to pull him back, but the moment our hands touched him, he seemed to dissolve slightly, like he was part of the air now, drawn into a space between the walls. A space only the house could see. And then he was gone. The living room shivered. The lights flickered violently. Shadows stretched across the walls like fingers, dragging at us, testing the weight of our bodies. We stumbled back, chest tight, adrenaline screaming in our veins. One of us screamed that it wasn't fair, that he had just vanished. The house hummed in reply, a low, vibrating tone that felt like a warning. We understood then, it wasn't random. The house didn't want all of us. Only one replacement at a time, one soul to occupy the space it had been starving for, learning what it could from our fears, our regrets, our doubts. And once it had claimed someone, it let the others live, just barely. The friend who disappeared wasn't gone in the way death would take someone. He was part of the house now, bound to it, alive but trapped, watching, teaching, waiting for the next group to arrive. We were left with silence, cold and sharp, pressing in from every wall, every ceiling crack, every shadow that refused to behave naturally. For the first time, we saw the truth. The farmhouse hadn't been abandoned. It had been hungry, and our presence had awakened it fully. It didn't want to kill. It wanted to be fed, and we had to run before it decided who would be next. We ran, not carefully, not smartly, just ran. The living room stretched longer than it had any right to. The hallway bent, twisting like it had a mind of its own. Doors appeared where they shouldn't, vanished when we tried to touch them. The air burned our lungs, thick with dust, and something older, something that smelled like soil and iron. Screams bounced off the walls, not ours, not quite. Somewhere deep inside, the friend the house had taken whispered, but it wasn't a voice we recognized, more like wind carrying memory. We finally reached the front door, or what we thought was the front door. It opened easily, too easily. Outside, the cold night air hit us like a wave. The fog had returned, thick enough to blur the fields. We bolted across the frozen grass, the farmhouse shrinking behind us, but never disappearing completely from the corner of our vision. We didn't stop running until we reached the road. The headlights cut through darkness, but nothing moved. No sound except our ragged breathing. We piled into the car and started driving, reckless, ignoring the fact that our phones had no signal. The highway seemed longer than it should have been, twisting through fog that shouldn't have been there at all. Behind us, the farmhouse waited. We didn't dare look back. Somewhere between the edge of the fields and the first lights of town, the sun began to rise. The road smoothed out. Fog lifted. Birds chirped. Normal. Too normal. But something had followed. A cold weight in our chests. A memory we couldn't shake. Tiny scratches under our fingernails. Dust that wasn't from the road. And a voice that whispered, barely audible over the engine's hum. We're not done yet. By the time we reached civilization, it was morning. The farmhouse was miles behind us, or so we thought. We tried to speak, to tell each other what we saw, what we felt, but the words, always twisted, came out wrong. Every attempt to describe the night felt inadequate, like the house had anticipated it and changed the memory to fit its own rules. We survived. That was undeniable. But surviving wasn't the same as escaping, because somewhere deep in our minds, we all knew the truth. The farmhouse doesn't let go. It waits. It remembers. And eventually, it calls again. No one said it out loud that morning. Not yet. But we all felt it. The way you feel a shadow on the back of your neck you can't see. The way your hands tingle when you touch a surface you know will remember you. And the friend the house had taken? He was gone. But not entirely. Not ever. We drove away with our lives. But some part of us stayed behind, trapped in the farmhouse, waiting for the next party. And somewhere, in the rising sun, we realized we had barely escaped. Barely. We thought the nightmare was over. We thought running through the fog, through the cold, into the sunlit morning, had saved us. That leaving the farmhouse behind had severed whatever grip it had on us. We were wrong. Weeks later, small things began. The whispers first, almost inaudible, sometimes in the shower, sometimes when we were alone. Names we didn't recognize, words we didn't say, yet they felt familiar, personal, specific. Then the shadows, in every room, even the ones without windows. They moved differently now, not following light or logic, but moving with intention, like something just beyond the corner of our vision, always waiting. And the friend we lost, he appeared. At first, we thought it was a trick of memory, a reflection in a window, a photograph catching him by mistake. But the appearances became more deliberate, glimpses in mirrors, silhouettes behind curtains. In moments when we were alone, just before sleep, we'd see him, watching, smiling faintly. Not himself exactly, something else wearing him. It wasn't him, it was the house. And somehow, it had learned to leave pieces of itself behind, to follow, to remind, to lure. One night, we gathered again, all four of us. And for the first time, we dared to speak about what had happened. But before anyone could finish a sentence, all four of our phones rang at the same time. Unknown number. Silent. We answered. Breathing. Deep. Familiar. Our own. And not ours. Then a whisper. We weren't ready to leave. The line went dead. We never spoke of the farmhouse in detail after that. Not to anyone. Not even to each other. Because saying it aloud might summon it again. But in the quiet moments, when the night stretches too long, or the wind presses against the windows in just the wrong way, we all feel it. Watching, waiting, patient, and we realize the final truth. The farmhouse doesn't just exist out there in the middle of the field. It exists inside us now, and it always will. Even years later, every New Year's Eve, I still check the corner of the ceiling when the clock ticks to midnight, because I know it's listening, and I know it's never done.